Good morning. I'm the Reverend Lisa Bovee-Kemper. My pronouns are she and her. In this community, challenged by our liberating faith, we discover deeper spiritual meaning, nurture loving community, cultivate courageous connections, and partner in the work of justice. Welcome to each and every one of you, whether you are on live stream or in person. We are pleased to have guests and newcomers and returning folks and family and friends with us in this room and participating virtually. I encourage you to reach out to our Director of Member Relations, Kelly Green. Her email and photograph are on the screen. If you want more information about the community, we have large print orders of service, personal hearing assistance devices, and an elevator available. There's also a hearing loop in our alternate worship space, the Bernstein Room, which also is a lower sensory space than this room, if that is useful to you. We have coloring pages and fidgets for all ages in the vestibule, if that's useful to you or to your children. We do have an Article 2 discussion after the service. We will be talking about the last 4 values in Article 2. The thing that makes it 4 is that there is a proposed addition, which is peace. That's one of the proposed amendments for General Assembly, so we'll be talking about that as well as the second 3 that weren't covered last month. So I invite you to join me for that. I also want to offer a heartfelt congratulations and hooray to all of you for the successful vote to call. It is a little bit, I think, like sending your kid off, like to college or something, and you help them pack and you help them get everything together, and then you leave them, you drive away from the dorm, and then they don't call you, right? And so I was kind of stalking the Facebook group and checking in. I checked in with Amanda partway through the week just to see how things were going, and looks like you had an amazing time and a wonderful vote, and I'm just delighted that you are moving on to your next thing. And as soon as I know where I'm going, I surely will tell you. This is the week where the matching is happening, so it will be soon. But anyway, congratulations, and just wonderful news. Again, a warm welcome to each and every one of you, whether you are here in person or joining on the live stream. Whether today is your first or your 1000th Sunday in our midst, we are stronger because you are here. We are one people of many beliefs, origins, identities, and genders. We are all growing, all learning, all loved. And now I invite you to take a deep breath and settle in as our service begins. It is said that ministers are here to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable. I say we are all afflicted and we are all comfortable. May our time together this morning be a comfort and a confrontation. May we here find peace in times of tumult. May we here invite tumult into lives of peace. May we here find calm in times of restlessness. May we here allow restlessness to evolve into action. Let this be the place that you consider what you've never considered. Let this be the place you imagine for yourself something new and unthinkable. May this hour bring dreams of new ways of being into the world. Come, let us worship together. I invite you to rise in body or spirit and join in singing hymn number 298, Wake Now My Senses. The lyrics will also be on the screen.
Good morning. I'm Mick Elvenstar. My pronouns are he and him. Today's chalice lighting words are provided by Lisa Day. Now I know how it's spelled, but it's actually pronounced Day. And I promise to try and remember to light the chalice this time. What if sometimes it's not about light in the darkness? What if sometimes it's about sparkling potential into possibility and possibility into existence? What if sometimes the flame that burns in the chalice of our faith is nothing less than the ember of hope and nothing more than love set ablaze? What if sometimes all we need to do is follow this flame? One among scores, hundreds, thousands of steadily flickering flames across the land and among so many peoples, on the way to justice and into the land of peace. What if we dare to kindle that chalice?
Officially, the heart is oblong, muscular, and filled with longing. But anyone who has painted the heart knows that it is also spiked like a star and sometimes bedraggled like a stray dog at night, and sometimes powerful like an archangel's drum, and sometimes cube-shaped like a draftsman's dream, and sometimes gaily round like a ball in a net, and sometimes like a thin line, and sometimes like an explosion. And in it is only a river, a weir, and at most one little fish, by no means golden, more like a gray, jealous loach. It certainly isn't noticeable at first sight. Anyone who has painted the heart knows that first he had to discard his spectacles, his mirror, throw away his fine point pencil and carbon paper, and for a long while, walk outside.
Today's theme really speaks to me. As someone who embraces creativity and who often doesn't go by the book. Oh yeah. So I thought I would talk today about my experience in the early days of my teaching. Now, by profession, I'm a speech pathologist, but years ago, I also started teaching. And the first class that I was offered, I was teaching adult school and community college. The first class that I was offered was communication skills for people who'd had strokes. Now, this does not come with a prescribed curriculum, and I loved that. So I was open to create my own, but I had to figure out how to go about it. So I decided to draw upon my background in theater and improv, and I would go into the class, have a general idea maybe of what we would talk about that day, and then get the class involved. And it would be something different every week. I might invent a scenario that we were going to play with. I'll get a story started, and then we'll go around and you tell me, okay, what's the name of the person in this scene? Okay, yes, all right, and describe the person. And where does the story go from here? And it would just take a different form every week, but I got them interested, I got them connected with each other. And of course, I always injected humor. One of the things in that very first class that really helped was I had a student who had what they call emotional lability. And that's something that people with strokes often have, where it might be expressed by someone breaking into tears for no apparent reason. That's the most common way it's expressed. But in this class, the student I had, his manifested in breaking into laughter. Any given time, no matter the context, he would just start laughing. And, you know, laughter's infectious, so the whole class started laughing. And that got us off to a great start. And so I used that. In time, I got a couple more similar classes. Then one day I was approached by someone who said, we are losing our hearing loss and lip reading teacher. Can you do that? I said, sure. I had no idea what that involved. But I had, as part of my speech training, you get a certain amount of background in audiology, so I knew it somewhat. I did a little research. I went in to the class. I asked them what their previous teacher had been doing, and then I went from there and built on it and added some of my own touches. For example, I would tell them jokes, but mouth the punchline. They had to read my lips. Or we would play bingo sometimes, and I would mouth the call. So they had to read that. I always tried to make things fun. And I will say my classes were well attended. People came back semester after semester. So I guess I was doing something right. And over time, that was the style I developed as I taught and facilitated groups over the years. And even today, if you drop into the disability support group that I lead here, at any given time, you just might hear laughter emanating from the room. This is the way that I work with and relate to people. And I will continue to do so just as long as I have breath. Please stand as you stand as you are. How does that go? Rise in body or spirit. Thank you. See, the rest of it I had down. Please rise in body or spirit and join us for the next hymn.
They say that curiosity killed the cat. I've never been sure exactly what that meant. I always had lots of questions about how that would have happened, but the implication was clear that more questions were not the way to go. If the cat was dead from curiosity. Of course, children are naturally curious, and we indulge their questions because we know they are learning. Who among us has not sat with a child who asks an ever-increasing litany of impossible questions, and no matter how hard we try to give an answer, the "but whys" just keep coming? I'm not sure if we grow out of this natural curiosity. Well, no, I think I kind of am sure. I think we say that we grow out of it, but I think actually we unlearn it. When we're children, we get curious about the top of the stove, and we learn that it is hot. Our experiences, both the simple and the complex, tend to encourage us to keep to what we know. The world out there is dangerous, and we learn to protect ourselves both physically and emotionally by curtailing our curiosity. Have you ever watched a child play when they didn't know you were watching? Think of how she looked at the toy, discovering its color, shape, and feel. She used all of her senses. She probably put it in her mouth. She looked at it. She maybe threw it. Think of how he pushed the button, twirled the end, pulled the string, and what his reaction was to the resulting pop, ping, or squeal. What did they do if nothing happened? They tried again. To borrow from Rumi, keep knocking, and the joy inside will eventually open a window to look out and see who's there. This natural curiosity, this impulse to wonder and explore, does not go away. I believe it is innate, a part of who we are, a part of our core nature. It takes practice and intention, though, as adults, to get ourselves back into the habit of wondering We have to be open to new experiences on purpose, to cultivate a sense of curiosity, to explore the world around us in a different way than has become customary. Some years ago, a rover called Opportunity, which was part of NASA's Mars exploration rover, went dark after a 16-year mission. It had been active since 2004 and is considered one of NASA's most successful ventures. It was dropped onto the surface of Mars and left there to collect data. In 2011, NASA launched another rover, the Mars Science Laboratory. This rover, of course, is named Curiosity. When I first heard it, I thought, what a fabulous name for a space thing. Names, of course, are important, and the exploration of space comes with a long history of wonderfully weighty and evocative names like Apollo and Endeavor and Enterprise. It's not a coincidence that this mission involved the rover named Curiosity at a time when the necessity of funding for space exploration is questioned. The shuttle program is not in operation. I can't help but wonder if the name has a deeper meaning than we might first see. Is traveling to Mars important? Is traveling to Mars essential? I think that the people who named Curiosity are telling us yes. Why should we go to Mars? Just because we can? Because exploration isn't just about peering around the next corner or seeking the next port of call. It's about setting out on a journey, whether it's a scientific experiment or the map of a new town. It is our habit in this Western, predominantly white culture that we tend to focus on progress with a capital P as the mark of success. Our society is one in which exploration is the norm. We visited the moon, and as I've said, Mars. We've sailed around the world. We have satellite phones, which allow us to speak with folks on other continents as if they were next door. Cell phones. Have any of you who have children sort of younger than the teen years ever played the dial-up modem sound for your kids or grandkids? I recommend it. It's really funny. And then you explain to them that not only did it make this terrible noise, if you wanted to use the phone, if somebody else in the house wanted to use the phone, you had to get off the internet. All of these things are wonderful and amazing. We continue to split atoms and grow cultures in labs, hoping that the next discovery will be a cure for cancer or some other disease. When we look back on all that has been accomplished by humans, we can't help but believe that anything is possible. And perhaps it is. But even in the face of all this progress, the concept of what exploration is has changed. When the Pilgrims boarded the Mayflower, they didn't know where they were headed. They didn't have any way to significantly understand what to expect on that journey. They were desperate for a new life, and they took a chance, leaving all that they knew behind them. First-hand accounts of how that went and what happened and whether it was successful vary widely, as do the versions we hear from historians working with the considerable advantage of hindsight. The bottom line, though, is that there are myriad ways to see one event. A sunset, or perhaps the aurora borealis, does not look the same to any two people, even if they happen to see it at the same moment. According to Annie Dillard, the secret of seeing is to sail on solar wind, hone and spread your spirit till you yourself are a sail, wedded, translucent, broadside to the nearest puff. Perhaps all we need to do to find new ground is to look from a different direction. In Pilgrim at Tinker Creek, which is where that quote was from, Annie Dillard devotes an entire chapter to the concept of seeing. She says, I once spent a full 3 minutes looking at a bullfrog that was so unexpectedly large that I couldn't see it, even though a dozen enthusiastic campers were pointing and shouting directions. Dillard's eyes were accustomed in that moment to seeing a certain kind of bullfrog. And when reality didn't meet her preconceived notion, she literally could not see what was right in front of her. It happens for things that your kids lose too. But maybe that's a different idea. Mom, I can't find it. It's right there. Cultivating curiosity means that you approach things with an open mind and heart, exploring your life virtually from any side you can think of. Switch lenses, open your eyes wide, and look from a different direction. This is one way to explore, to leave yourself open to the possibility of each day, of each moment, to try to approach familiar places with new eyes or from a new direction. Put a fresh perspective on a familiar landscape. Miroslav Holub was a scientist. He was an immunologist, and he was a poet. The poem that I shared with you earlier describes 2 ways to see the heart. First, we look with our eyes and see objective reality, the scientific, the rational, the straightforward. But if we look at the heart with our hearts, a different world is revealed to us. The artist Pat Allen says, behind our everyday life pulses a world of primal energy that forms itself into images by way of human acts of speech, writing, thinking, and painting. It's so easy to find ourselves trapped in objective reality. We are busy and tired, and so we get used to looking with our eyes, to seeing what is most simple and straightforward. Have you seen those challenges where they give you the first letter and the last letter of a word, and the letters inside are mixed up or not correct? And most people, many people, can see what the word is supposed to be, even just from the first and the last letter and from context clues, which I always find very interesting. But what that means is that also sometimes we get it wrong, because there are lots of words that have the same number of letters and the same first and last letter. We are busy, we are tired, we get used to looking with our eyes, we forget that there is more to see than what's on the surface. Like Annie Dillard, we see what we expect to see. And when we approach the world around us with a sense of fear rather than curiosity, we are more likely to see people we don't know as the other, to vilify people who are different from us. But curiosity is what pulls us toward creativity. Not just artistic creativity, but toward creative problem solving, innovative solutions. and finding new ways to explore and discover. It's easy to conflate creativity with capital A artistic, especially when we're constantly presented with the right brain, left brain dichotomy. If you do a Google image search for the phrase left brain, right brain, you get a ton of different versions of the same idea. A drawing of a brain in various levels of realism, the halves delineated by word and color and image. In most cases, the left side is flat and in grayscale, boring and very meticulous looking, with neatly lettered words like analytical, logic, and control. The right side of the brain in these pictures is full of colors and textures, overflowing outside of the boundary of the actual brain, and the words include passion, freedom, and vivid. It's hard not to read a value judgment into these images. Obviously, Technicolor is way better than black and white, for sure. But on the other hand, you're supposed to color inside the lines. But there is new neuroscientific research that suggests that the right brain and the left brain work together to innovate. Our right brains spin out all of this illogical and nonlinear and brightly colored stuff, ideas and inspiration and wonderings, while the left brain pays attention, analyzes, catalogs, and keeps track of what's happening. The two sides of the brain work together to accomplish the creative process. Because when you get down to it, the act of creation, whether it is scientific or artistic, is actually more about persistence than it is about epiphanies. The epiphany is just the beginning. After a moment of insight, you have to spend a great deal of time testing and proving your hypothesis, making your invention function properly. I had a physics teacher in high school who had invented a perpetual motion machine, which he set up on his desk one time, and it was really cool, except that halfway through the period it stopped. So he had to go back to the drawing board. Creative geniuses of all kinds only get a retrospective showcase of their childhood sketches and discarded attempts at what became the masterwork after we know that they became Matisse or Curie, Cassatt, or Jobs. Well-known inventions like Velcro and Post-its were the product of mistakes and missteps, and they only became profit makers because someone paid attention to the whole process, because someone made a mistake and didn't quit. For a while, I was a substitute teacher, and I was in I think it was a first or second grade class for a week, and there was a kid in that class. We'll call him Dean. He was the one who cussed when he wasn't supposed to be talking, and who got distracted. His seat was over to the side because the teacher had put him in a place where there were fewer distractions. The other kids always pointed out that if something was happening that was not supposed to be happening, that obviously it was Dean's fault. And so I, as one does, tried to build a relationship with this kid. Of course, as I got to know him, I discovered that he was sweet and kind and thoughtful and creative and had trouble sitting still and said stuff that interrupted and didn't always have the best social skills and all of those things. But he was a really fun kid to get to know. And so one day, it was indoor recess. Well, kids like Dean, I was a kid like that in different ways. Kids like Dean need to run around, right? We all need to run around at recess, and so we had indoor recess, and so everybody was getting twitchy and everybody was getting bored. And I found myself at a table with Dean and a bunch of paper and drawing implements, coloring crayons, whatever. There were a bunch of kids drawing, and he was getting bored. And so I taught him what my family calls the squiggle game. When I was a kid, my mom used to always have a little notepad, unlined notepad, small, and a ballpoint pen in her purse, because that was how she kept her lists. And so if we were ever waiting at a restaurant, or if we started to get bored, she would pull out her pad and paper and we would play the squiggle game. You may know a version of this. Somebody makes a squiggle on the page and passes it to the other person that they're playing with, and then they have to draw something identifiable out of it, right? And we'd go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. So I taught Dean the squiggle game. And we went back and forth and back and forth. And then at one point, he didn't give it back. He just kept coloring on the page. And he made this brightly colored and creative and wonderful scene with different beings and images and all kinds of stuff. There was one central being, image, and so I was asking him about it. Can you tell me about that? Well, what is that in the middle? And he, as he was drawing, had been turning his head, flipping it sideways, turning it upside down to get a different perspective. And when I asked, can you tell me what that is? He looked at me like, duh, lady. And he said, it's a four-humped camel. Which it clearly was, once I knew what to look for. That was probably 20 years ago, and I still remember that kid, and I hope that he is somewhere thriving with his creative brain being appreciated and understood. Well-known inventions and like Velcro and Post-its were the product of mistakes and missteps. And they only became profit makers because someone paid attention to the whole process, because someone pushed through the mistakes or the things that didn't quite fit into the framework, because someone made a mistake and didn't quit. Curiosity is what allows us to be creative. If we don't wonder about what's around the next corner, if we don't spin our paper, turn our heads, look at things from a different perspective, we will never find the four-humped camel or that fabulous new bistro around the corner. If we don't make mistakes, we will never fight our way to success. And if we don't approach the people around us, the images around us, the bullfrogs and the four-humped camels, the sticky glue that wasn't quite sticky enough on the Post-it, we'll never fight our way to success. And curiosity is what allows us to approach people and ideas that we don't know with grace and mercy. Life is a creative process, my friends. Church is a creative process. And curiosity is a spiritual practice. Curiosity is one of the spiritual practices that keeps us moving, growing, learning, and transforming. The secret of seeing is to sail on solar wind. Hone and spread your spirit until you yourself are a sail, wetted, translucent, broadside to the merest puff. Curiosity went to Mars. Why? Because it could. And because we never know what's next on the horizon. And how exciting is that? The wondering child seeks answers to impossible questions because that is the way to make sense of the world around them. May we too find our own creative process. May we too be open to unexpected inspiration. May we too listen to the voice that calls us to compassion. And may we never be afraid to approach our lives with an open heart and a questioning mind. May it be so, friends. Amen, and blessed be.
I happen to think that Reverend Lisa has done an excellent job in guiding us through this transitionary period. Coming out of COVID, losing 2 ministers, and I can tell you as a member of the search team that her help was invaluable in the process. So, now is the time to step up as we move to what looks like a bright future. Step up in terms of our personal commitment and in terms of our financial commitment. We are grateful to our members who pledge their generous financial support and make regular contributions to sustain the work of our congregation. While the offering is collected, you are invited to come forward and light a candle honoring a milestone, concern, or celebration.
Please join me in a time of contemplation or prayer. I invite you to breathe deeply, to be present to the spirit of life, which is in us and through us and around us, to those human connections that give us strength when we struggle and celebrate with us when we are joyful. The gathered community hears and holds both difficulty and ease as we honor the experiences that make each of us who we are. Today we send our love to Mary and Steve Bruce and their family on the death of Mary's sister Helen. And we ask you to hold Barbara and Mike Searing in your thoughts and prayers as they deal with Barbara's declining health. And on this Mother's Day, this complicated and sometimes challenging, sometimes painful, sometimes joyous day of celebration, of mothering, we create a circle of care that makes space for the complexity of life, the myriad experiences that bless and break our hearts. The truth of human experience dictates that on any given day, we each come to the sanctuary with hearts in different places. It is especially so on this day, invented to honor women who nurture. In this circle of care, we honor the truth that mothering is not and never will be qualified in one single descriptor or experience. Mothering can be elusive or infuriating, fulfilling or confusing, commonplace or triumphant. It exists in the everyday experience of each person. There is no human being among us who is not connected to or disconnected from a mother. And so we honor the complexity of experience writ large in flowered platitudes, but here in this space, laid bare, honoring the truth in each of our hearts. There is room for all in this circle. If you have carried a child or children, whether or not they came to be born, we see you. If you have fervently wished to do so, and circumstances of fate made it impossible, we see you. If you love children we cannot see, whether because of death or estrangement, we see you. If you never wanted to be a mother, we see you. If you are happy to mother other people's children as an educator, an auntie, a foster parent, we see you. If your mother hurt you, physically or emotionally, we see you. If your gender says that you are not a mother and yet you take on the role of nurturer, we see you. If you wonder whether your mothering has been enough, we see you. And if yours is a different truth altogether, we honor your unspoken story. There is room for all in this circle of care. May it be so today and always. I invite you to take a deep breath with me. I think we're supposed to do them in patterns of 3, so let's do 2 more. And now let us sing our closing hymn. You may stand if you wish. Love Will Guide Us, number 131. guide us through the hard night and the bright and promising day. Join with me in our chalice extinguishing words, which are on the screen. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community,